Hey, I'm Todd Brown, and I make these videos because I want you to rip on race day. All right, well, I'm Todd Brown, and this is the Pedal Industries Race Day Ready podcast, and we have our guest today, Tom Danielson. And Tom, it's great to talk to you live. We've
Great to chat with you.
And direct message and things, and it's great. So I know somewhat about you, but I'm not sure that everybody else does. I'd love it if you give us a little background on I guess start from the beginning. I like your first bike ride to where you are today.
Yeah. So my background is I was a professional cyclist, racing the Tour de France, did world tour racing for 15 years, retired. My career ended, started a business, ended up being a coaching business. It's called Cinch Cycling, basically where we help change people's lives through the vehicle of cycling. So our business is focused on, a really holistic approach to cycling, not just the power side, but also the health and wellness pursuit, right? The self-fulfillment, self-confidence side of it, the learning and developing as a human being, personal growth side of it, the nutrition side of it, and then the skill and strategy side of it that really helps us really enjoy it like a real sport. So that's what I'm doing now, and got into cycling as a kid. Pretty much started in motocross, and my parents, I mean, it's just like with anyone, it's really difficult to pursue that sport. And so cycling was introduced to me by a friend in my neighborhood, and just got on the bike, and kind of was like motocross, but my physical engine was more than the 80cc that I was riding with motocross. So just immediately got race results, got into racing, started winning.
How old were you at that point?
Races. That's a good question. I think I was probably about 14.
Okay.
I was a little bit later, I think, than I could have started, but 14 or 15, I think, was about when I started, and yeah, just got into it. I would say it came kind of natural and easy in the beginning. I did races as a beginner and did well, and that really sparked my passion, I guess. Now that I look back at it, maybe more for the wrong reasons, but at the time, being young and stuff, like you're looking for something to define yourself with. And
Sure.
That seemed like a really nice way to do it. It was like, hey, I'm good at this. And as a kid, I was really skinny and small. And so, like, as we know, cycling that can be helpful.
Sure.
So it was like, for all the reasons why I didn't have girlfriends and things like that as a kid, was like why I was good at this. So I think I liked that, and pursued it completely, then fell in love with the sport. And just pursued it all the way up to the top, which was pretty surreal experience. Didn't come easy, the pursuit, that's for sure. And we'll probably get to that later in this podcast, but one of the big parts of my coaching program is really teaching people about the importance of, learning the craft, and really taking your time, and, your timeline is what your timeline is. And I think as a kid, I really was trying to rush that timeline all the time, right? Like I was like, well, I've got to win this race, and I've got to win that race, and I've got to do this, and just created all this unnatural, external or internal stress that I guess I interpreted at the time as external, but was internal. Ultimately led to a lot of struggles, a lot of poor choices. And during my career, I ended up, a lot doing in my path to my career, just a lot of tug of war with myself, and so, looking back at that now as a coach and a business owner, I can see, as I look back at my journey, how I can better take people through the same process. Learned a lot from my mistakes, and take your time, enjoy the journey. You you've got as much time as you're willing to put up with.
It's a very time sensitive sport for sure. Um, so was this early racing? Was this in Colorado? Was that where you're from? Did you grow up there? Was it road? Was it mountain?
No, I grew up in Connecticut, East Lyme, Connecticut. Now it's kind of a little bit of a hotbed, more or less, or hotter bed than it was, lukewarm bed. When I grew up, there was just 3 of us riding mountain bikes there. This guy Neil Clausen, Ken Avery, and the little kid Jeremy Powers. He was just getting into cycling when we were winning races and doing well, and so he was kind of like the first from our 3 that like caught the bug of cycling. And he's done a good job of growing it in that area, but he's actually from the same town as I am. We got him into it and taught him, showed him the ropes, spent the time riding with him. And he's stayed there since. So all of us, or I guess I left. Neil Clausen, the guy that really helped me a lot, he's still there. He owns a farm. And ironically, like I actually coach a lot of people from my town. So grew up in Connecticut, but got out of there, went to Colorado. But it has grown quite a bit since I left.
Gotcha. That's cool. So just briefly, how do you transfer from amateur and get to that pro level? Like, is it just a natural progression? Is it a bit of luck? How was it for you, I guess?
Yeah, so this is a good question. And, how do you transfer from amateur to pro? And I deal a lot with this with my current job, right, where I'm working with a lot of younger riders who are interested in doing that. And I have done that with quite a few riders at this point, which is cool. I've even taken a rider from, Cat 2 to World Tour in 2 years, which was cool.
Can you share the name of the person?
I'm gonna keep it quiet, just because I don't really want to jump all over it, but definitely have built a lot of my program around that particular individual, which was a cool journey to do that. But the biggest part of that journey is really looking at yourself and understanding who you are as an amateur, right? Like, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And then like a job interview, right? Like, what do you need to perform at the job? And what I'm seeing with a lot of amateurs is they don't necessarily understand the job, right? So they're looking at the pro ranks, they're looking at the World Tour, they're looking at, their whatever Cat 1 upgrade or whatever it is. And they're saying, man, I want that. But in order to get the job, you must first understand what you want and what you're going to do in the job, right? Like, you have to think about your skills, your ability, and your education, just as you would in the normal world, in the professional world. And what I did, and I stumbled across this in my career, right, was I took a step back and I said, well, who am I, right? I'm a climber. And at the time I was pursuing mountain bikes. And do I really fit this mountain bike, mold that I'm in right now? Every time I go on a road ride, I rip up these hills. And everybody's telling me, you got to race on the road. The mountains are on the road. And so when I made the switch that I said, okay, I'm going to switch to pursuing mountains on road, immediately it was like my what I love to train, what I was good at, what I was the most experienced with climbing, immediately kind of fell into a need, which is in professional cycling, which is like mountain top finishes and mountain races and climbing races. And in the road, it's very romantic and it's a big part of that. And when I connected the dots between, okay, I'm a climber, I'm going to focus on climbing and I'm going to be the best climber, then it was simpler for me to understand that path and where I needed to go. So back to, amateur riders, you got to look and say, and we do this in Cinch, we say, what rider type are you? What position do you play in the sport of cycling? And it doesn't have to be road. It can be gravel. It can be mountain bike. It can be cyclocross, whatever it is. But what are your strengths? And every person is a rider type. We have 4 in Cinch. We Classics TT, which is a lot of people sort of call as like the ruler or whatever. But, I think this Classics TT at Cancellara, if you follow that that time frame or trying to think who currently would be, Ghana. He's a classics TT rider. I mean, Wout van Aert is a classics TT rider. And then you go and you have your classic sprinter. And I don't really have a pure sprinter in the rider types, because the days of the pure sprinter, unless you're in the criterium scene and you have a 9-person lead out train, that's over, right? Like the days of Cipollini and stuff like this, it's, you really need to be able to go over climbs and go in breakaways and ride hard selective courses and then sprint, right? And so the classic sprinter, that's would even put Cavendish in that place, right? Because he's won Wevelgem, he's won a lot of stages in the Tour, the Giro, the Vuelta that have had climbs, and for me, Tom Boonen falls in that category from, he's one of my favorite riders from that day and age, but classic sprinter, super important, rider type to understand. Then you have the climber. That's pretty obvious. Nowadays, the climber is less prevalent, I think, than we had in the past, where, in the past, like with the Pantanis and stuff like that, where it's like this pure freak show climber, you got this whole team that's literally trying to help you get to the finish line. Nowadays, with the power meters and the training technology that we have, just being a pure climber is almost not enough anymore, right? Like you need to be able to do the time trial, the power stuff, the classics, the Pogačar, right? These guys that, Pogačar is essentially kind of comes from a classics TT, almost, background, right? Any climb. So the pure climber is unique, but nowadays is a little different. It's changing. And then you have the puncher. That's the Alaphilippe. Everybody loves that. I would almost kind of, say that this rider type, nowadays is really catching a lot of attention. The explosive climber that has a lot of power, that can do that kind of 2 to 4 minute power. And we see a lot of mountain bikers that are punchers, right, coming from that, because the mountain bike races now are the shorter, more muscular, explosive climbs and things like that. So yeah, you have those 4 rider types, and I know I'm kind of ranting on about all this stuff, but as an amateur, you're looking at which of those 4 rider types you fall into, and, how can I build my skill set, build my ability, and build my education and my understanding of the sport in this rider type. And then how can I take that to races that are getting attention, that are putting me on the map, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you're a classic sprinter, right, or you're a classics TT rider, for example, use like your area, right, SoCal, you're a road guy and you're saying, hey, or road girl, and you're saying, hey, like, I want to get out on that scene. Those criteriums, and you're going to want to do them with the Legion folks, right? Like you're going to want to be out there in those races. That is a team that has budget, that, has jobs, and they have successful riders. And you can say, hey, I'm going to get out there and I'm going to show, one, that I can sprint, or 2, I can chase down breakaways, or 3, I can go in breakaways, right? I think those are the 3 areas. Like if you're in that criterium SoCal scene with Legion, you're going to have to be one of the best riders in that. And you can see some of the riders that have been in that scene have got jobs on the team, right? So pretty cool roadmap. I hope I didn't make it too complicated, but in my mind, that's how it works, right? Understand the job, understand who you are, your role in the job, and then most importantly, understand what you need to get to do that job well. And I think a lot of people, again, miss that. They're too romantic, right? They say, I do 40 hours a week training. Give me the job. Nobody cares how much you train, right? Like nobody cares. In fact, it's almost like looks bad, right? It's you're like, I spend twice as much, 3 times as much energy on this, and I don't get any results. Hire me. No, right? We want the best bang for our buck, and we want to make sure that you've got a process and you're consistent. That's how I think you can make that jump to professional.
Okay. And did you go right to a big team? Did you transition?
I got my ass kicked a lot, and so no, I didn't go right to a big team. I struggled in college, like balancing the personal relationships, the social scene, and I gave so much up as a kid to be good at cycling that when I got to college and I was like, whoa, like there's other people here doing other stuff. Like,
Right.
like this bike riding's hard. And like, it seems like this other lifestyle that everyone else is living is a little bit easier. I did that for a bit. That put me back. And on my journey back up, I was on some cool teams like Sobe Headshock. I don't know if you remember Sobe Cannondale. I was on that team with some really cool riders. You know, Tinker Juarez was always an idol of mine, and it was really fun to ride a Cannondale and see him at the races. And, you know, he was an idol of mine as a kid. And then there I was, like, kind of doing similar racing than him or with him. So that was fun to be on that satellite team, I guess, to Cannondale. And then when I made the road jump, it took me a while. Remember, like I probably got my ass kicked at the pro level for about 3 years, you know, and then I jumped to road, did well. But keep in mind that getting your ass kicked on mountain biking, like, does teach you like how to be a good bike racer and how to deal with stuff. So it wasn't like I wasn't doing anything during this time. In fact, getting my butt kicked helped a lot. By the time I got to the road, I wanted it bad. I had made so many mistakes. I had a lot of answers and a lot of solutions to race well. And I was able to stagiaire for Mercury my first half season on the road. Got to race with some really cool teammates like Chris Weary, Hank Vogels, Gord Frazier, Mike Sayers. You know, was really, really cool being on that team with those guys. I learned a lot. Scott Moniger. And then I signed my first real contract off of that, which was with Saturn, which was with teammates with Chris Horner, which many people know, Trent Klasna, Mark McCormick, Eric Wahlberg. It was like the hit squad of Ivan Dominguez. He was kind of a SoCal legend down there. Charles Dion, I don't know if you remember him, but like it was like the A team, like, you know, Saturn was like was a big budget US team back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So I was still in college, which was cool. I got a Saturn Vue to use that year. Oh, Rasan Bahati was on the team. That was cool racing with him. Got a lot of stories about Rasan. It's kind of fun to see him do his thing now, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. Okay. And then how'd you get to Europe?
Same type of thing like we're talking about, you know, identifying races that I had opportunities to get in front of big teams. I, from the get-go, was interested in Europe, mainly because people were telling me I could be good at Europe, right? Like there was, and I think this is an important part of the story, is that, you know, people, you know, gave me direction and confidence from the know, right? People were saying, your climbing is world tour level. You can be a good climber. And it wasn't just, you know, from inside Saturn. It was externally from the people I was training. You know, started with Ned Oberon back in Durango, you know, rode with John Tomac, like all these guys, Bob Roll, I was around, was like, hey, you should go to Europe and do something with that. So I was already mentally focused on achieving that goal going into Saturn. And so the race that I marked on my calendar was Tour of Langkawi. It's in Malaysia. I think at the time was a 10-day stage race, almost world tour level, but some smaller teams like Saturn got in, but all the big teams were there. Chris Horner was my teammate. He had won Tour of Langkawi in the past, so he knew how to win that race and shared a lot of that information with me, and went there and focused on getting the win and won.
Wow. So overall, the GC?
Won the GC, won the GC. And there was, you know, a lot of teams there that took note. You know, I kept up with the best climbers, dropped a lot of the best climbers, and people were like, okay, you know, you can definitely do it. So I got offered a few contracts, and the one I ended up taking was with Fossa Bordello, big Italian team. It was like the best team. It was kind of the Ineos, or Visma or whatever, Jumbo, whatever of those two, you know, your flavor would be, but it was the Italian version of that. So like Cancellara was on that team. You know, Pipo Pizzato was on that. I mean, the list was, you know, Dario Frigo, Frank Vanderbroek was on the team. I mean, it was like every best rider ever who was like on this team. It
must have been amazing for you.
yeah, that was my first experience. Lived in Italy straight up, didn't speak any Italian, had to learn that. And yeah, had to learn European racing on the best team, and got my butt kicked a lot. That was a tough time.
I bet. Yeah, trying to hang out with those guys. So in my mind, like they're the pro tour level, the training, what they're doing is like whatever we're thinking about now is what they were doing maybe 10 years ago. Is that a true thing? Like, are those guys, the current like Jumbo Visma, are they doing techniques that like we're just not even thinking about yet? Like whatever the power meter is of the future that will be common, are they using techniques and training and are they just light years ahead? We're like, for you, when you got there, we're just like, oh, I never thought about training like that.
You know, you're not going to like this answer, but the answer is no, right? Like the people like us, like the coaches are the ones that are working on those things, right? The teams, they hire coaches and they bring in people to help with these things. But I would say that it's more the riders themselves that are pushing the sport forward at that level, at the fast rate they are, right? Like, whereas like Formula One and you kind of look at some other sports, motocross, the teams are really driving a lot of the innovation. And I feel like on the equipment side, yes, the teams are pushing that, right? Like wind tunnel testing, finding the fastest skin suit, the best, booties to wear, the fastest pulleys, the bikes are top notch for sure. But the training side of it, really in general comes from the riders. Now there are some exceptions to that. And I would say, Ineos, and Jumbo Visma, I think are the exceptions where they really have put in a big interest in the riders, from a training standpoint, from a logistics training standpoint. But I would say that the biggest thing that those teams do, that's differently, is they take the best of the best. And this was the same for me in my career, like with Discovery Channel. You go to the training camp with the best of the best. You're riding with the best rider who has had the best success and has the best people around them. And so you're seeing how they pedal, you're seeing how they hold the handlebars, you're seeing the types of training they're doing. Now, the teams, they'll put you in position with those best riders over time, but you got to earn that. So you don't come in as some, new guy or new girl that's, coming in and they're just like, hey, you're so talented, we're going to put you on the A team. They kind of like give you the sink or swim, like don't really give you access to all that, the training with the best riders and going to the best races. They even kind of sometimes put you with like a general coach that just gives you a general training program that's oftentimes too hard. And so you kind of do too hard training with too hard of racing with too many race days. Mm-hmm. And they kind of take the ones that swim from that group and then they move them into the A-team program, which essentially is going to the best races with the best racers, doing the best training camps with the best racers. And that's really what pushes that along. But it's not like people think, where they think, the World Tour is the best training and they know everything and it's so awesome. No, it's a lot of times, the Dylan Johnson or whatever on the YouTube, has more aerodynamic information than a lot of these teams, right? Like, again, Ineos and Jumbo, they jump out, right? And when I was on, Discovery Channel, we spent a ton of time on technology, and you see, Garmin Slipstream, Cannondale EF, whatever, they spend some time on that. I think they probably spent more time before than they do now. But a lot of these teams that are smaller, they don't, in the old school, right? Like Lotto or whatever, they're not doing any, like in the results show. So I think, to answer your question, it's not as good as it looks, for sure.
So it kind of goes back to what you're saying. Like, you have to know who you are. And it's really, I even told my kids this, right? It's me incorporated at the end of the day. And you're running your own business. Yeah, you're part of discovery or whatever.
Yeah.
But still, and so I guess one last thing, like when you have, are people holding their cards close to the vest amongst the team, or are people pretty liberal with, hey, I'm trying whatever Polaris training and it's really working, or are the teammates pretty close on that, or is even that held pretty close to the vest among the riders themselves?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question again. And I just want to hit on that point that you just said, it's me incorporated. And I think that's something that I learned, right? That you have to take control over your destiny by putting your team that has your best interests around you, right? Like your family, your coach, like your own mechanic that's at home with you. You got to build this, almost like the motocross riders have, this team around you that then goes to the race and has your best interests with your program and your training. And that's key to success. Now on to, the next point, sorry, can you ask me? I totally spaced out.
I was just wondering if the writers, like if you figure,
Okay, yeah.
the writers share information, or are they keeping that pretty close to the vest? Because, right, if I tell you my secret, now you're number one on the team and I'm number two. I just wonder how that works, that dynamic.
Yeah, and you're spot on with that too. Like people definitely, and I think that's a cycling thing in general, right? Like we all love to keep our secret training there and keep our secret diet and our secret regime and all those things close to the chest. I think that definitely does exist for sure. I would say that, like, it's probably at different levels with different leaders of the team or different top riders. Like, Chris Horner, I use him as an example. I feel like he shared everything, right? Like, I mean, he shared what he ate, whether it was good or bad. He shared his training routine. He shared his tactics. Yeah, I mean, just like he is as a commentator, he's just very open and straightforward and tells it like it is. And, by him doing that, helped me and helped the riders around him. As you know, also in this world, like a lot of people are not open to taking advice or learning from other people.
Sure.
And so, yeah, maybe some of these riders keep it close to the chest, but at the same time, you also have to be, aware enough to say, hey, like, Todd over here or Primo's over here is winning. Let me have a look and see like what they're doing differently than I am and see if I can learn. And a lot of people, again, they come in and they say, well, I know what power to weight they do, so I'm going to lose weight and gain power and beat them all, and a lot of times it's just something simple, right? Where it's like, what are you doing with your heels? Oh, you're lifting your heels up on that upstroke. Wow. Like, that's cool. Like, so I think, most riders don't share, but the ones that do, it's important that the riders around them take advantage of that.
Right. Okay, cool. So back to me incorporated, as long as we're going to stick with that theme. So you retire at some point. How did you know it was time to retire? Like, did you?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get. I mean, that's a big part of my story. I didn't really get the retirement that I wanted, right? Like, I had a positive doping test, and that ended it all for me, like in a ball of flames. I think it was an unfortunate situation for me, and I can go back and give as much color and light to it as
I didn't mean to bring that up
as I want to, but no. It's a big part of my story, and
okay,
like it happened due to I'll just say this, and people can believe it or not, but the positive test came from a contaminated supplement. And so, the difficult side of me is I had done this behavior in the past. I had participated in doping in my past. I had come out and shared everything that I did as part of the Lance Armstrong, investigation and exposing myself that way, right? Like sharing so many details about, how I had doped, when I had doped. I mean, that was what we did is we shared all of it. And so it was, you have this positive test and no one's going to believe that you're innocent. Right. And, at the time when this happened to me, I was like, it sucked because I was like really like at the peak of my career. I had really figured a lot out. I was in a really good shape, and I just said that kind of Euro style. I was in very good shape and was ready to do some of the best racing that I'd ever done. And, to have it all come crashing down like that, that was pretty scarring. And the way it happened too was, I didn't really know, like I had this relationship with USADA due to, cooperating and participating in the Lance Armstrong investigation. And, they like had my phone number and they like called me at dinner, the night before Tour Utah and told me I had a positive test. And like anyone would react, like I like told the world, right? I didn't know what to do, but I knew like I couldn't race in that state. And, I didn't know what to do. So I just told everybody, which, now looking back at it, maybe wasn't the best way to go about it, just because, the information that they gave me was wrong. And so, it torpedoed my career and it made it in a way that I couldn't return. Right. And that was my retirement. There's no pretty story there. And honestly, like the biggest thing that I learned from that whole experience is, whether it's your fault or it's not, it really doesn't matter. Like you got to pick up the pieces and you got to move forward. And, the first like 6 months after that, into my career, I was still trying to get my career back. Right. Like I was trying to prove my innocence. I was testing supplements, figuring it out. And, the money in the bank account was ending. I had 2 kids at the time, 4 now, but 2 that needed support and needed, I had a family and I wasted a lot of time chasing my tail, trying to prove my innocence. When now I look back at it, again, how does the same way we were looking at sort of me incorporated is like, what skill set do you have? Like, where are you at? And how does that match up to racing? If you kind of look at this, it's like, well, you already did this in the past. People aren't going to believe you. Sponsors aren't going to want you back. You're older. Like there wasn't a whole lot of like career trajectory for me to say like, oh yeah, like prove your innocence and come back. It's like, well, maybe I can prove my innocence, but I'm already destroyed. Like my image is already destroyed, and so what I end up doing is quietly proving my innocence, resolving that issue, not dragging everyone that was involved with name through the mud, put an end to my career. Again, I find it sad, right? Like was pretty traumatic how it all went down. And yeah, I mean, just going through that whole public experience was tough. But what I learned, like I said, is ownership is key. And at the end of the day, like I took the supplement, like I trusted the people, like I didn't do enough research into it. Like, it's my fault. Right. And it's my responsibility to move forward. So, as soon as I got to that space where I was like, okay, it's time for me to move forward. Okay. I'm going to press on. That's when I found Cinch. That's when I created Cinch with my wife. We really needed to find a way to make money. I have a marketing degree. I have a psychology degree. So I kind of went out in the time and went to all the people I have relationships with and said, hey, like, what should I do? Should I get a job? And every single person told me to start a business with cycling. And I said, like, I can't do that. Like, my name's Mud. Like, people will hate.
Interesting, right?
And they said, no, like, you're good. Like do what you're talented. Like, people will get over it. Like, people will move forward. Like, people, the truth will always come out, right? And if you're this slime ball, cheater, like, horrible person that people are saying you are, then your business won't succeed. But I know you, and you're not that person. You'll succeed. And so I took a leap of faith, and it's kind of funny because the house that I'm in now, I bought with some money that a lot of my savings account right before my positive test, and we put our whole savings account essentially into this house here. And then I had my positive test and I lost my job. I lost my career. It all went crashing down. And we hadn't closed on the loan or we hadn't closed on the house yet. So I still had time to back out. Right.
Yeah.
And I said, me and my wife looked at each other and we had not very much money at all. none in the bank account. We had like 2 credit cards with some room to go with that. And he said, what do we do? Do we go with this house? Like trust that we have what it takes to move forward, and trust that you're innocent, trust that you're gonna move forward. You're gonna get, out of this, or, pull the money out of the house, live in an apartment and have that nest egg. And I said, well, I'm innocent, one, and two, like I know I'm confident that, I'm going to be able to move forward. So we went ahead with the house, right? Like literally with no,
I love this. So great.
No income, and just belief, right? Knowing the truth, but having the belief on the skill set and who we are as people, and we're going to do it. And so when we started Cinch, right, like we kind of already had this like mortgage payment situation, right, which was in line with like what I would have made as a top pro world tour guy.
Right.
And so when we started Cinch, it was like, that's where I drew the line. I was like, we got to make this much money. Right. And so we put all of our stuff on credit cards, and started going aggressively after building up Cinch. We started with camps, and at the camps, people were like, no, I want coaching. And it had to charge a lot for coaching because we needed to make a lot. And so didn't really look and see like what other coaching businesses were doing. Didn't look and see, like how successful they were. Like, honestly, like, and I'll get to this later with like my cancer journey and all that, but like, that was a big win for me, because if I did look around and say, well, what do people charge for coaching? How many people are doing coaching, right? And how many people do it as a full-time job? And can you make as much as you make in racing as a top world tour rider doing cycling coaching? Yeah. Like if I put that into like, chat, AI or whatever it is, and or like, like ask Google, like they say, you're fucking crazy, bro. Like you ain't gonna make shit coaching, right? Like, and I didn't even add it into the equation, but like just recently had a doping positive, like, like your name is literally smeared all over every internet site, all over Twitter, all over, like, can you start a winning coaching business? And so that catalyst with knowing the income really forced me and my wife, Courtney, to hustle hard. And what we did is we didn't, again, pay attention to what other people were doing. We didn't pay attention to, what was happening outside. We just listened to the people that came to our camps and say, what are your problems? Right? Like, how can I help you? Like,
oh, good.
You know what I mean? Like, now that I look back at it, it's sort of business 101, but in the time it was like, we just had like, and let me tell you again, like having starting to start up a business during a doping positive, like with your name smeared all over the internet, is not the right time for it. We were doing
history as a coach.
Like
history as a coach.
Literally, like we had like one person at the camp, and with that one person, we would just sit there and ask them questions and listen to their storytelling and storytell to them. And that is how we got the information to build this program, because the people were just telling us what they want. And we're like, well, I know how to do that. I can build that. Yeah. I can teach you that. I can help you feel that. Oh, I know the solution for that. Like, and I wrote everything down, every problem, every desire, every goal, wrote it down and built a process around it, built a program around it, and then started doing it with people. And what ended up happening is they told their friends, and their friends told their friends. And, to this day, we still have the same clients that we started with in 2016.
Amazing.
And I would go to group rides and I'd go out there and, and everyone would shame me on the group rides, right? They'd be like, Tom Danielson, you shouldn't even be, because I was still suspended at this time. They gave me a reduced suspension, right? Because I showed my evidence, and they said, okay, we're not going to like give you the maximum here. You have a shorter suspension, but it still was significant. I was suspended. And what happened was, like, the other coaching businesses would literally shame me on the rides, and they would call USADA and tell them, this guy is coaching these people on these group rides, and he's suspended. And I would get letters from USADA that said, you know, hey, like, you're not allowed to, like, or no, they're not, those people, if they're racing, you know, amateur races, they're not allowed to hold a USA Cycling license and coach you. And I like told the people, I was like, hey, like, I can't coach, you know, what do you want to do? And at one point I got a letter from USADA that had, like, because I built my clientele quickly, but a letter that had like 75 names, you know, of like 75 people I coached, and was like, these people are, you know, are going to get a letter from us unless you know, turn them. I don't even remember what it was. And I went to each person. I said, hey, this is what's going to happen. Like, you could get suspended for being coached by me. And they all said, no, I'll get suspended. I'm staying with you.
Amazing.
And I was like, holy crap, really? Like, you really want to stay with me? Like,
How did that feel? Like, how did that feel in your heart?
And so eventually my suspension ended. And then I was like, you know, whatever. Now I was just like this, like, disgraced human being, that, you know, people had all these crazy stories about me that they would share. Still, it was super hard to get, you know, out there, right? Because people, again, would just make it absolutely as difficult as possible. I mean, I had this one group ride literally ban me, like, you know, and I wasn't suspended anymore, like, ban me and my group from their group ride, because my group, and these were all older people, right? These were all, and I should go back here. My clientele at the time came from the people that were dropped off the back of the group rides. So I would sit at the back, right? Because I'm shamed anyway. I can't go up there and do anything. Right. I'm at the back, and that's where all the people that are struggling and need coaching are. And so they will get dropped off the back, and I'd be like, hey, do you want to get back? You know? And they'd be like, yeah, I want to get back. And I'm like, hey, try this, like, pedal hard here. Like, don't force it right here. Like, let's go here. Let's use this. Let me show you how to position before this part with a crosswind. And so eventually I had all these clients that, like, literally were, like, dropped off the back, and they were all winning the group ride. And that created a lot more people signing up. And we had this whole force, and that led to mine and my group and getting banned from the group ride. You know, they said, you can't come here anymore, right? Like, we got these other coaching groups, and they don't like you here. And I mean, dude, my story in building this business, like, it was brutal. And, you know, like, so how did my career end? It ended like that. But like, you know, again, going back to ownership and just going back and saying, hey, like, this scar that's all over me, these problems that I'm having, you know, just instead of feeling sorry for myself and saying, hey, like, you know, like, try to understand it, right? Like, you know, not everybody's educated in who you are and your true story, or like why you're here, and they only hear from their friends or what they read on the internet. And, you know, maybe they're spreading hate or making things difficult for you, but, you know, they don't know. And you can't waste any time getting upset about that. And you can't really waste any time, you know, worrying about, like, why you can't move forward with those people or whatever. You've got to just focus on the areas that you can move forward in. And yeah, so that led to me really focusing on the customer and the client that was dropped, right? Like, you know, I couldn't get up to the front of the group ride. Like, those people thought I was bad. So I was back there at the, you know, the back, building programs and finding ways for people to succeed, you know, in cycling. And through that experience really led me to understand that cycling truly is a vehicle for personal growth and self-change and healthy habits, right? Which before I just thought cycling was a vehicle to win races. And here I am, you know, using this for me to keep sane, right? And I'm learning about other people and helping them with their cycling. And everything they were telling me is like, you know what? I just want to feel good about myself. Like, I just want to, you know, live to see my grandkids. Like, you know, I want to get better at something every day. I'm older, and every day I get worse, you know, but cycling, I feel like I can get better every day. And it's like, that's in essence, like, you know, how Cinch got built in sort of a really rough time. And now I look back at it and it's like, holy cow, can't believe I survived that. But yeah, that's how it happened.
So I love that. I love that. Yeah, so,
oh wait, sorry, just add one thing. So we did get the business up enough to pay off pay the mortgage and pay down our house.
Still in the house.
Yeah. So that and I will say that, like, back to the amateurs or anyone that's looking to, succeed at a professional or at a higher level in anything, I think that's key really, is like knowing where you're at, which was broke, desperate. I was broke, desperate, and had to make the money, right? Like that was my true perspective.
Yeah.
And so that led to me working tirelessly no matter what to succeed. There wasn't an option to give up. It wasn't an option to do something else, right? And so that was a big part of the business's success. Is just like, I've got this pressure, I've got this standard that I'm setting for myself, and I can't not hit it, or else more than me, a cause greater than myself is going to suffer. And so that's really what led me to build Cinch the way it is now.
So it was a perfect transition point, because why the name Cinch? What does that mean? What does that, is it an acronym? Is it, tell us, give us a background. And was it the first name? Was it the third name? How did that come about? And
I mean, just like the retirement party, like it's not a pretty story, right? Like it's not that great. So like the original name for the camp that we started with was Tommy D's Cycling Escape. And, at the time, right, like I had the name Tommy D, and I was a good cyclist, and I had a good fan base, right? So, that worked to get people initially. But then when we had the problems and we needed to create a business, so I should back up a little bit. So I had a camp business prior to the end of my career. That was just a small thing that I was having fun because I enjoyed people, right? I honestly, like, I did this literally. I ran cycling camps in my off season as a pro cyclist while I was training. I like coaching. I like people that much that I did that. And so I couldn't use that name anymore because my name was shit. And so I needed another name. And so my wife and I, we kind of thought like, all right, we need a name. What is it going to be? And well, what do we do? Well, we simplify cycling and teach it to people. And so Cinch essentially in the beginning means simple, right? Like making something simple. And I think cycling in general, at least what I have experienced with my journey with the coaching in the business, is that people feel overwhelmed and intimidated by how complicated and how difficult the sport is. Yeah. Right? Like you want to get into it, but it just seems like there's so much, and there's so many things, and there's so many experiences, and everybody just seems way better than me. Right. And so we came at it, or we always have come at it is, hey, we're going to simplify this and keep it simple. Now, since then, I've been desperately wanting to turn it into an acronym because I feel like we're so much more than simple cycling now. Right. And so like I've messed around with a bunch of different things. But today, right, the acronym, and I basically made it while I was at the cancer center. I found out that I was going to have to amputate my hand, or my finger and my knuckle off my hand, to prevent cancer from spreading in my body and from coming back. And I was terrified of this building. I was terrified of cancer. I was terrified of the path that I was going down. I was terrified by the doctors that I was talking to. And I met the guy, the surgeon that ended up doing my surgery. And this guy like treated me like how I treat people in Cinch, where it was like, I understand you. I understand your problem. Mm-hmm. I have the path for you. It's going to be hard, but this is the winning strategy. That's what this surgeon did for me, this oncologist. Yeah. And prior to this surgeon, everybody was very much like, ooh, cancer, like, I don't know. It's really hard to follow. It's very complicated. It's, all those things are true. But just like anything else, you just want somebody that you can trust that says you can win this, right? And I'm going to show you how. Yeah. And at that point, like, I was desperate, right? I was terrified. I was scared. And so I was like, that guy, like how he made me feel is like what I want every single person to feel like with Cinch, right? And so I wrote down an acronym at the time in my car at the Anschutz Cancer Center in the parking lot, literally crying, right? And so for me, like the first part, the C, it means courage, right? That's what we do, that in our culture. That's what it's all about. That's what cycling does for people. It gives people courage, right?
Yeah.
The I is inspiration, right? Like you've got to be inspired to do what you need to do, right? You've got to have that inspiration. You've got to have that passion, right? The N, to me, that means never give up, right? That pact that you're never going to quit. You're never going to give up. You're going to see it through to the end, right?
Yeah.
The next C, basically, like, again, like I feel like, you know, there's so many different like letters and different C's, you know, that you can put you can put in there. You can put, you know, it all in there. But I feel like commitment is key, right? Like that's what I'm feeling right now, because you got to be committed to what you're doing. You gotta have the courage, right? You got to have that commitment. You know, you got to be able to use that commitment to conquer, you know, what you're going to do next. And in this case, whether it's cycling, whether it's health, whether it's racing, whether it's cancer, you know, you got to commit to conquer, right? So that's the C. And the H is what that, you know, oncologist, Dr. Donaldson, gave me that day. And what I try to give everybody that I talk to, and you know, is hope, right? And, you know, for me, like that's something that I've always been able to do a good job with, is hope. No matter whether it's the end of my cycling career, whether it's divorce, whether it's cancer, like whether it's, you know, failure, whether it's, you know, my son's blind, like whatever it is, all these things that I've been through, I feel like I've always used that in that sense of optimism that I have almost in my DNA, this like hope. Like I'm excited for what's next. This is shit right now, but damn, I can't wait to get up tomorrow and do something great, right? Yeah. And that hope, and so that's an acronym that we have now, and I haven't done a lot of work putting it out there because it's fresh in my mind, and I don't really know how to get it out there. But that's our culture in a nutshell. That's what we do here in Cinch. Yeah, and so that's what Cinch means.
I love it. I love that story, from the simplicity of the start to the heaven given inspiration that you've received to spell that out. It's really simple.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. I also love your branding. I love the big powerful C. I love the color, right? That Celeste color that you guys use. How did you land on that color? Does that mean anything to you guys?
Yeah. So one of our first clients, Matt Tanner, he is a graphic designer by heart. And so, you know, in this journey, and just like everybody knows, like bootstrapping a business from the beginning. And I will add, like, we never had any investor money or had any help. Like we bootstrapped this thing from the beginning. Also was, we leaned on our clients, right, that were helping, you know, to build the business better, right? We have a really high level group of people that are here now. I mean, it's actually amazing the people that's part of our business. I could go on all day, but he was one of our first clients, Matt Tanner. He started in 2016. No. He came to our first camps in like 2014. Yeah. So he's been here forever. And he has a really cool brand, Roll Fast, that he started in Indiana. He's got a cool following. He's a great friend of mine. He's still a client, and he's a coach now, which is awesome. You know, he's one of our
Cinch.
Yep. We've made all of our coaches are people that were like our star clients that have been here from the beginning, that get it, that love people, that love the program. So he's one of them. Yeah. And he just like, you know, he just messed around with some colors. The original colors like had brown in it. He put this like creative brown, white, black, and that, you know, that aqua, celeste, green, blue color. Yeah. And the brown didn't stick. And the green did. So we kept that, but he's the guy, that came up with the C. the C with the inch. So the C is the C and then the inch, so it's cinch.
Oh,
Right?
gosh, that.
Yeah, no one really gets that, but I do.
I was looking at your hat right now. It's like, is that a 16? Because started in 16. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, no, that's like the inch symbol in there. So yeah, it's stuck, and it's cool now, right? Like people recognize it like everywhere. So it's it's
very different.
Yeah. So thanks for the feedback on that. Like I would say that we've worked really hard at that, but that's not true. That was just Matt doing a good job back in 2000 and whatever, crushing it. And we've stuck it since. And I'm a super creative person. You'll probably have seen a lot of different variations of the kit. And so I'm back to listening to people to keep it simple and consistent, because sometimes, creativity away from your brand makes it difficult for people to understand it's your brand. So yeah, the C and the color, I'm going to stick with that.
That's very good. Very good. So you're doing a lot on social media now. I think that's how I've rediscovered you. But let me just backpedal just for a second there. And I apologize if I have the story wrong. You can just say, dude, that was terrible. But did you write a book on stretching?
Yeah, so I wrote a book on core training.
Yes.
We have two books.
I tried to go find it in the garage before we picked up, and I was like, I have one of them.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, for sure. And I was like, where is this book? But I just couldn't find it. And then I thought, well, maybe he didn't write it, and I wasn't going to bring it up. But okay, so tell us about the book. Like, when did you write that? And
yeah, that was during my pro career. I wrote it with the physical therapist, personal trainer that came up with all those exercises. I had a bad injury in 2008, bad back injury, herniated L5S1, and was struggling in my racing and went through all kinds of PT and different people, and no one could really get me dialed, and met this one woman, Allison Westfall, and she was amazing. And so I thought her stuff was so good, and the way she taught me the importance of core training and activation. And I mean, this was kind of in the time that like no one really talked about it, right? And so yeah, now everybody's got a core program and this and that. But she built the whole thing around cycling. So I basically kind of she followed me in the car and saw how I rode, and she had no cycling background, which I think is a lot of times the best type of person to bring in when you're trying to solve or create something that's really specific to like a concept that doesn't necessarily involve cycling. So like if we're talking about muscles and how they work, like starting with a cyclist, they're only going to see like how they've always done it. So, going with someone that literally like looks at me and like your posture shit, this and that, seeing it for what it truly is and not necessarily thinking anything about why it's that way, was important. So yeah, she followed me in the car. She followed me everywhere. And, made all these cool exercises through working together. And so they worked awesome. I got through my injury, got back on the bike, raced better than ever. Obviously I had a good career. And yeah, we wrote a book together, with her exercises, but just my context and storytelling behind it. And it's done really well. Like, it's a lot of people have it, so it's cool. And I think it's really changed the game. And we use it religiously here in Cinch, the core activation program. We do a lot of core stuff before the ride, a lot of things after the ride, things on your rest days. Sometimes people complain. They're like, why do we always do the same exercise over and over again? It's like, listen, it's like brushing your teeth, right? Like as soon as you stop brushing your teeth, like you realize why you're brushing your teeth. Like we don't need to make that colorful. We can make the workouts, the cycling colorful, but I'm sorry, like making sure that these exercises work. We are not changing this. Like this 10 minutes, change your life. I still to this day do my routine. So
that's great. And did you say you'd written another book as well?
Yep. So we created a whole system that we use in Cinch called the Form Performance Method. And the idea was like, we have this holistic approach to cycling. We knew a lot of people were going to adopt or kind of use this idea, right? Like at the time, everyone was training with like FTP and like, zone 2 and like, really like basic kind of like this is the way it is. And we're like, hey, there's a lot more to it. And so we wrote a book on the whole system. One, so we could copyright it, but two, just to kind of get it out there where, people could see like, wow, there is a whole technique component to like cycling. There is different mindsets that, are used in cycling. Like, wow, like this whole nutrition idea of like fueling through carbohydrates and things like that, and integrating that in with like the zones I'm using. And I mean, these are all things that are not necessarily original on their own, but the way that we teach them, and then kind of like the context that it's all brought in for a high level output at the end of the day makes it really original and unique. So we wrote a book on that. It's pretty cool. Yeah. So you can check it out. It's called Cycling
Where
on.
can people find that?
Yeah, you can find it
website?
everywhere. Yeah, any it's Bellow Press did it. I guess Bellow Press no longer exists. I think they got bought by Outside or something like that. But the book is, the Outside or whatever publishes it. It's in Amazon, Barnes, every bookstore, every online thing. It's on our website as well. Cinch Cycling.
Okay, great.
CC. It's done well too.
I did get us off the rails, but I'm glad we covered that. I was going to talk about your social media because I think you're doing a really interesting job on your reels. And how long have you been doing those? Are you getting traction? Is it just because you just want to get the word out? Is it bringing business back to you guys?
Oh yeah. I mean, well, one, I'm a super creative person, right? So like my whole coaching methodology is very creative. Like I will sit there and work all day long and just let my brain like think about stuff and create new ideas and refine them. And I'll just do, that's like fishing, or that's like cycling for me, like creating stuff. Like I love it. And so like I started using video to teach within Cinch long time ago. Like when we first started, that's like, how we did a lot of our teaching was like, here's a video, how to do it, right? Like just sending it to the clients or demonstrating it. And we didn't really spend a lot of money or time on social media marketing, so to speak. We did more kind of like the social media was like kind of like, well, this is what we're doing, right? Like we did this race, or this guy won this event, or, check us out. Like this is me on a climb, like kind of that. And, we put up some of our videos that we were using internally and had like a really positive reaction. And then people started signing up because, they would share the video. They would like, wow, this is different than what anyone else is doing. And I guess what's cool about the videos too, is it's like a way where I can be creative and enjoy, make cool stuff. What I love the most too is like showcasing our badass clients, right? Like it is a bit of a rush to like make a video, like be creative, make a video about someone, and they just look so damn good on the bike, right? It's like, here's this, 6-year-old rider, and like, look at him, because look at his position, like, oh, here's this female racer that just, is ripping up this climb. Like, look at that, like, look at the technique, look at the mental intensity. And I get it. Not everybody gets the same excitement. Like they don't get it, right? They see a 6-year-old rider and they're like, okay, cool. But like, I hope, or that they can see like, wow, that technique's really good. Like that person looks like Pogačar, right? Even though, they're going a little bit slower. So, I started with that, just like that, just being creative, teaching, coaching, sharing some of it on social media, it reacting really well. And then nowadays, like the way that the Instagram works is the reels, they kind of stay up, and they get sent, people share them, and, due to their popularity or whatever, they get promoted on other ones organically. And so we haven't, so to speak, spent money on advertising, a paid ad in like 4 years, right? Like we haven't paid for an ad for a while. Yeah. So I guess we stopped paying for ads in 2019, I believe, 2020 or 2019 or something like that, and just kind of created organic content. And then, but what we do spend our money on is a pro team. And so you could say that that's advertising.
Sure.
But it's, for me, it's more R&D and passion. We have a pro women's team. We spend a lot of our money on it, but I think it's very well spent because, we're able to put our coaching practices, methodology, passion to the biggest test, trying to perform well at these high level races. And the cool thing about that too is they're doing racing that is relevant to our clients. So, we're trying to win Unbound, Crusher of the Tusher, Tour of the Gila, or, SBT gravel, or these events. Like, it's like, oh, you're doing SBT gravel. Okay, cool. Like, we learned this. And you really learn when you have a lot of skin in the game, right? Sure. Like if it's your financial investment, if it's, it's your time, if it's your program, and you're a competitive person like myself, like, yeah, you really learn if it works or not, because you're not willing to put it out there. So we're very, and honestly, like, this intensity behind the team really has been inspired by the kind of like the drive to survive, like, show, right? Like, just watching that during the pandemic for me was like, man, like, if we did that with our coaching program, like, it's like we tested all this, and and the lot, and I'm talking a lot on this, but the cool thing about our team is it's all organic clients from Cinch. So none of the pro women that are on the team, like, we recruited, like, hey, you're winning, let's put you on the team. Every single person came to us needing help to get to the next level. So we have passionate people, people that are relevant with relevant stories to our clients. And so we're able to get a lot of really valuable data on our program. And I'm still to this day, like, hoping like the numbers somehow show that it's like this investment on the team returns this much into our business. It doesn't at all in terms of like short-term, like marketing or whatever. Yeah. But I do believe like long-term with the quality of the program, brand recognition, things like that, it will pay off for sure.
Marketing is always hard to measure. So it can always be hard to measure for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. So how do, so I think a lot of people have not ever had a coach, right? And now they're like, okay, I've been at this for a little bit. They're not lucky enough to have an ex-pro hanging on the back to come up and say, hey, you might want to try this when you hit that next hill. So how do people, and not everybody's near you, right? So how would you suggest people go about, just in general, finding a coach? There's good coaches, and I'm sure you've had good coaches and bad coaches. What would you suggest? You probably have some sort of intake form with Cinch, even, like, to decide if it's a good fit for you guys. What do you suggest for, I guess maybe we'll even look at specific demographics, like a guy training for a charity ride. He wants to, not necessarily people that want to go pro, but they just want to get better. Like, which is your target in a sense. How do you recommend people find a coach?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. Lots of good questions today. The first thing I would say though is, like, why have a coach, right? And what does a coach do? Why have a coach? And number one is you really need, like, your number one support person that is devoted to you, that's always in your corner, that always has your best interests at heart. We talked about this a little bit with the World Tour racing. This extends all the way down to like your family life and your community and your club and your friends and wherever it is. Like, you really need somebody that's like just devoted to your personal interests and success. Mm-hmm. Now, it might sound kind of like soft on the outside, but you're not always going to know, especially when you get to the friction and the tough moments in your life, what the best path is for you, right? And you're not always going to know, like, is the advice or is the direction you're heading in going to yield the result that you want? And so that coach is like, again, kind of back down to like, that oncologist that really connected with me is like, that's your person that's in your corner that says, this is the winning strategy for you, right?
Mhm.
There is a lot of value in that. And it's having it someone outside of your family, I think is good, right? Because a lot of people will say, well, my wife is my partner in that, or my husband's my partner in that, or my best friend or whatever. But there's always going to be kind of a moment where there's going to be conflict, right? And in maybe your pursuit of passion or your pursuit of health or whatever it is, where it's like, hey, I need like an unbiased opinion, right? Like, I'm not sure if you're giving me this advice connected to what you want to do or what you think I should do for me. So I think that why behind the coach is important. Now how you get the coach, that's a good question, right? Like, well, I don't even know the answer to that. Like I think like, you know, looking to people that are like you that have had success with a coach, I think is probably the strategy that I would take, right? Is kind of like look out there and say, okay, who's like me? What type of person, what's, what background do they have? And like, are they successful now? And, that's the majority, how we've got the majority of our clients, is through word of mouth, right? Where, yeah, even though people might see us at the race and yeah, Lauren wins a race and people are like, wow, she's super fast. Like a lot of times people are like, well, that person's talented or whatever. So like just winning races is not enough, right? It kind of has to be like, well, what's the story? Where did this person come from? And they use your program successfully and now they're at a better spot, right? So, testimonials aren't really that great for that either because it's like, well, so many people give testimonials. So yeah, like doing kind of word of mouth research or at least like looking at a type of person, I think that's a good way. Personality is always important as well. Like you kind of want to see like what, vibe that the coach has. I think a lot of like cycling coaches are really like bland and kind of like boring. So for me, like I like people that have energy, give inspiration and have like motivation behind me. And during my career, and a lot of my coaches were just kind of like that, right? And it's like, oh, it's the science. I'm a scientist. It's like, I mean, yeah, okay, the science is the science, but like you don't have to like treat me like a science project, right? Like, I'm a person. So finding someone that's got a good vibe and good energy, and I think, that will also lend itself to that person's passion behind your success, which I think is important, right? Like, a lot of times, like you said, it's like, oh, I'm doing a grand fondo. Like, it's like people probably thinks that like, yeah, Tom Danielson like doesn't want to work with me because like that's boring. But like, I love grand fondos, right? Like we went to like all the grand fondos in the beginning of the day. Like, I mean, like it's like for me, like a race is a race, a challenge is a challenge, a goal is a goal. Like, I'm passionate about personal growth, right? Like that's what fires me up. So you just kind of need to find someone that says like, hey, like I love, like your vibe, right? Like that connects with me. And I feel like you're going to be like, again, to the beginning is the why is like, you're going to be in my corner.
Yeah.
Like, you don't think my goal is stupid. You don't think my goal is low on the totem pole. Like you're like, hey, I want to see you win.
What percentage of your clients are local versus like you may never see them in person physically, except for maybe at some annual race? Is mainly everybody local to you, or do you have people well, you said you have people in Connecticut. So how does that?
I'd say that my biggest percentage is not local, right? Just because the country and the world's a lot bigger than Colorado. But when we started, a large percentage was in Colorado. But the technology is cool. Like you can do a lot of coaching, and I found even like with my local clients that people don't have time to like meet up every day, or even if someone was my neighbor, like it's like, well, they're training at like 5 a.m. Or I need to train at 9 p.m. So, and I think like in general too, like cyclists, they like to do their own thing. So, having a good comprehensive, holistic program that has the tools to be able to coach from afar, is key to doing a good job in this game. So, I built the program so it works really well without being actually in person. But yeah, I mean, in person is fun, right? Like I love it. We do camps all throughout the year. This year, I think we're going to do 6 camps. And that's a good way for all of our clients to meet each other and for us to meet our athletes as well. And we get to see cool places. Like we're going to go to Italy in the fall for gravel world championships and do a gravel camp in Tuscany. Oh, wow. After. So that'll be fun. But yeah, we just got back from one Benville. We did a gravel skills camp, Benville. Then before that, we did a Mallorca camp in Spain. So a lot of clients all over the place. And we do a lot of cool stuff online. So we do online workouts, online classes. We do Zwift rides. We do Zwift race simulations. We do mindset workshops. We do climbing workshops. We do fun music stuff. Like we throw down for sure.
That's awesome. So here we are, this huge career, right? From a kid that got into racing to raced at the highest levels to the Phoenix, right? Built his life back from the ashes, married, 4 kids. How old are the kids?
13, 11, 3, and 1.
Oh, so you got a busy thing going on over there.
Yeah. It's crazy. That's why I'm in the basement right now.
I love it. And business is good. And how's your health? Like where are you at on your journey?
Yeah, I mean, it's good. Like I think it's been a wild ride. Like I'm a very intense person, and when I realized like I could build a business with my brain, I mean, that was kind of like a breakthrough moment that I think was very liberating for me. It was like, whoa, like I can make money other than like racing bikes. Like that was like crazy, right? Like I was like, wow, I can like come up with an idea and come up with a concept, put work behind it, sell it, and make money and like it. Like that was like, because people kind of taught me like, or at least in school, I thought like jobs were bad, right? Like cycling career, good, normal work, bad. But I realized that like normal work can be really fun and can be rewarding. So I kind of went berserk. So I just like blew, I called it like melted my brain, like all day, worked super hard, and just like kind of let go on my cycling. I think also I had a really negative relationship with cycling at first. Like I always rode with people to coach them, but I had a really hard time with like training hard because I felt like it linked to my feelings of racing and how my career ended. And so I had a lot of like scar tissue with that. And so I would like personally like avoid training hard for that kind of stupid reason, right? I drank wine, a lot. Like, and again, I can't really do stuff in moderation. Like I wasn't an alcoholic. I wasn't like drunk all the time, but pretty much like every night, like I really love to like drink wine, get like a buzz and be creative and work on my computer till like 1 a.m. Right. And like as a dad, right, like it kind of like, yeah, I had some time with my kids before that. And then I would stay up late working. And I just felt like alcohol would give me, I felt like alcohol would give me the same feeling as like a hard workout, right? Whereas like a relaxed and happy and free. I also felt like I felt like crap from working all day. So and staring at computers. So I felt like it took away that crappy feeling and it gave me sort of what I would feel on my bike. And then I could continue working. So I kind of like abused it in a sense like that. I didn't sleep. So I would sleep and I prided myself on that. Like I would do stupid stuff. Like, again, like I prided myself on my dumb workouts. Like, back in my racing days, like I would do crazy workouts that were like 6-7 hour rides and so much climbing and so much threshold and so fast. And because I don't think they actually made me better, but like it made me feel good. right? Like, it's like, man, I'm a badass. Like, look at that. Look how dumb that was. And like, look how strong I am. I did the same thing with working. It's like, look, I can go to bed at 1 and I can get up at 5.
Oh,
Like, I would literally like do coaching and create stuff till 1 in the morning, and then get up at 5 and just like get on the computer. And I would feel so bad. Like, my muscles would hurt, my neck would hurt, my head would hurt, my back would hurt, my hands and arms would hurt. They would just like this achy, like, bad feeling. And I loved it, right? Like, cause to me, it was like, well, that's work, like, that's hard work, Tom, like, you need to keep doing that. Like, go, 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 and I just thrived on it. And I would get really stressed out about stuff. So, one of my personalities during my racing career is, I think that I had a lot of problem with anxiety and, wanted to do well all the time, put a lot of unnecessary pressure on myself. And I think I took that into my business life, right? Where it's like, I got to do better. I've got to get, I got to grow this. I got to make this better. I've got to create this new thing. I've got to make this person, better. And this person got beat in their race. Like, I have to figure out how it was. And like, I would go to the races with the team and with my clients, and I would sit there just so nervous the whole time because I wanted them to do well. Right. And I just throttled myself in that sense. And then the last bit is like, which is kind of the first bit, but I like didn't train. Like, I wasn't exercising. And so, I'm kind of skinny, smaller by nature. So I don't look not fit to the untrained eye, but I was in a bad spot, right? Like, I had fat on my body all over the place. Like, I was very unhealthy. And I honestly, I would have kept doing it had I not gotten cancer. I would have done it until until I couldn't do it anymore. Right. And the second, I found out that I had cancer, I knew like that lifestyle was responsible for at least some part of it. Like, I don't really know exactly all the details. And I don't think anyone does. Right. But, knowing myself and kind of understanding, like, if you kind of think about how it works and seeing a lot of the studies and stuff, like, the behaviors that I were doing were all the things that literally lead towards cancer, right? Or to lead towards your ability to your body to not be able to stop it. And then like the alcohol, right? Like, I think there's a lot of studies that show that, that is related to cancer. So, when I got that call, I freaked out like everyone does. I thought I was going to die. Like, I was completely blown away. I went right on Google and researched the cancer name and found out every possible bad thing that could happen. Told my family, which was another mistake. I was freaked out, right? Like, I told my family I had cancer. I thought I had,
like, your wife and your children. Like,
yeah, like, I just had a meeting with everyone. I'm like, I have cancer, and when you're first diagnosed, like, at least my experience is like, nobody gives you any answers, right? Like, I got a call from my surgeon that removed the tumor to tell me it was this crazy rare form of finger cancer. I asked him, I had a camp we had 50 people in Mallorca, a Cinch camp that just days later. Wow. And I asked him, I remember saying, I was like, can I go to this camp? Like, I'm shaking on the phone, and he's like, well, I don't know. We have to do the scans on your body. And I'm like, when can we do the scans on my body? He's like, I don't, not for a while, and I'm like, well, I leave on Thursday, like, it's Tuesday. Or I guess I left on Saturday and it was like Thursday or something like that. And, he ended up rushing the scans, but the days between, like, finding out that I had cancer and then, going through the whole process of scanning my body. I mean, and then knowing, that I trashed my body. Like the body that got the phone call that told me I had cancer is not the one that I'm supposed to have, right? It is not Tom Danielson's body. If you had given me that call during my racing career, I would be like, okay, let's beat it, and now it's like, holy shit, like I've been trashing my body. Like this makes sense. Like I'm screwed, you know? Um, and so I told myself, like, if these scans come back negative, like clear, like I'm changing my life today, and I think if they came back not clear, I would have still taken the pact, right? But I'm just being truthful. Like in my mind, that's what I said. Like, it's like, if I have this advantage, like if I'm given this gift, this advantage of only having it in this area, like I am going to commit my life to making sure this shit never comes back. Right. And so, yeah, did the scans, got the scans back. They were clear. Went to Mallorca, and that's where I changed my life. Right. Like I stopped drinking that day. I started trying to get 8 hours of sleep, getting 8 hours of sleep. I stopped internalizing stress. And I started doing my workouts. And, that trip in Mallorca really opened my eyes on the value of Cinch, because, I saw like, holy crap, like all these people are doing this to stay alive. Like I'm joining them in this pursuit of life, right? Like of vigor, of longevity, like of feeling good, of not having that phone call like I had, like, like saving, being able to be there for my family, like all those things. I realized like that's what I want, right? Like, and I'm willing to make the sacrifices to get there, right? Like I have not been good to myself, and it turns out I need to do things for myself to be able to do things for others. You hear it all the time, right? But like when you're in the thing, you think you're invincible. You're like, that's fine. I don't really, and it's easy, right? Like a hard day of work, like nobody wants to get on the trainer and do a hard workout. But that high intensity, that lifestyle, those are the things that make the difference, right? And what makes cycling unique. And it really, when I started researching things, types of exercise to prevent or stop cancer, that VO2, that threshold is like really where a lot of the studies come around that say, hey, like that is what does it. You realize like, well, an older athlete, like there's not too many options to push yourself physically that hard, that you can break down your cells and you can break down your body, your muscle, you can do things to really get that the regeneration that you need. Like running and some of these other things, like they're off the table, right? Like you're not going to be able to run hard enough, right? Like if you're older, and especially like me, where you haven't been running in 30 years, you just can't start. And so, yeah, I really had a wake up call with that. And yeah, it's been a crazy journey since then. Like, had to do a bunch more scans, a lot more fear, talked to a lot more doctors. My cancer is a rare cancer. And so they put me in this kind of high level unit or team in the Anschutz Cancer Center, and talked to a lot of different doctors until I got connected with the one that I'm with now, Dr. Donaldson, who is amazing. He's super badass, super high level guy. And again, like, he was a game changer for me. We ended up amputating my finger and my knuckle, the middle of my hand, and also took out some lymph nodes that were connected to that middle finger where the tumor was. So yeah, the lymph nodes were clear, which was awesome. I have to do scans like normal every 3 months to make sure it hasn't spread. But the chances of it having spread are extremely low, so that's good. And yeah, so just gonna keep on my lifestyle. Big change for me is obviously missing my middle finger in my hand. That was like, I think at the time I was very intense about it. I was like, well, this middle finger wronged me. Like I am going to kill it. Like it be gone, middle finger. And yeah, just going through that whole amputation process was a lot harder than I anticipated. Really required everything that I've got to get through it. Still maintaining my business and my family, and I like to do well. So just having that high intense, high performance lifestyle was difficult. being afraid of getting something amputated, and then the trauma after that level of surgery, and then where I'm at now, which is like literally having to relearn how to use my hand.
How's that going? Can you grip things yet? Can you?
Not really super well. I'm kind of in the frustrating, but needing to practice what I preach with perspective face. So I'm about 6 weeks out of my surgery now. So I have about another month to go before I'll be cleared to ride out on the road. But my hand is out of the cast and it's doing things, but it doesn't work super well and it looks different and it is very nervy. So like the two nerves that go to my pointer finger and my middle finger, or I guess I don't have my middle finger anymore, my ring finger, they are on fire most of the time. I take this medicine called gabapentin that helps, but I call it the wishbone. I get this like gnarly pain that's in the shape of a wishbone that goes down those fingers through the center where the amputation was, and then back up the other side. So that's pretty gnarly. I can't really use it super well. So it just kind of feels like I have this like little thing on the end of my arm that doesn't really work super well. And then I have like this phantom limb thing where it feels like I have my middle finger, but I don't. So like when I'm typing on the computer, sometimes I'll accidentally try to use it. When I'm riding my bike on my trainer inside, like that's what hurts is my middle finger that's not there. I have this like throbbing nerve, like crazy pain that feels like my middle finger is going to explode, but it's not there.
Well, what's the timeline for that to calm down?
Yeah, so I didn't ask that question. Mainly because just like I said, some of the mistakes that I made in my career were due to like knowing my timeline or thinking about my timeline or, I have this saying in Cinch, your timeline's your timeline. And like, it doesn't really matter. Like what it ends up being is what it ends up being. And I need to focus on all the things that I can do to manage the situation that I have. But back again to like perspective, like I'm alive, like I'm well, like, I've made a good move here. So if I have to live with this for the rest of my life, then that's fine with me. So I'm assuming it's going to get better. But I'm not that worried about it. I'm just sharing with you, like, what it feels like.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't imagine it.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild, right? Like you don't really think like you use like I'm right-handed and I was like, oh, it's the middle finger on my left hand, like get rid of it, and now I'm kind of like, whoa, I use my left hand for a lot of things. And like, I mean, I made a goal for myself to go to Unbound, to be there for the team and kind of rushed my rehab, or not my rehab, but my healing a little bit. But it was good. Like it really forced me to be in a good, positive mindset with goals. I think that's important.
Sure.
But like getting there, like being there, like it kind of was one of the more frustrating moments of my experience with this, because it was like, everything that you want to do, you can't do, like it's like, oh, let me grab the camera. And then I found myself a lot of times like really somewhat like embarrassed about the pain that I was in. Like I kind of had to hold my hand up in this weird thing to mentally be able to deal with it. And I felt like people were staring at me for that. And then, I felt like it doesn't look that good. So I felt just weird about being there in front of all these cyclists, like, but then at the same time, like I had a lot of pride that I am alive and I beat this thing and I'm here. So like that felt good, so it was an interesting week for sure. But yeah, now I started therapy with it. I guess it was Tuesday, got my ass kicked in therapy. Turns out, like, first of all, the hand doesn't work, but then second of all, which I think is an important part of it all, is that cyclists are not super coordinated with our hands, and especially our left hand, or the hand that's not our dominant hand. So I think I was struggling with a lot of the things, like one, it doesn't work well, and then two, like it probably didn't work that great to begin with, right? Like, so who knows? Like,
Yeah.
it's a journey. I signed up for it. Like, I'm doing my best with a winning strategy, and that's all I can focus on.
Dude, you're living like the life of 10 people. Like, it's just, you've got a very full and active journey that you're on, and I love it, and I just love sharing it with you.
Oh, wow. Thank you. No one's ever said that to me, but I like, that makes me feel good. Like, I feel like I do try to like live a vibrant life, and saying it that way, it makes me feel good. Cause like, yeah, I do a lot of things, or I think I guess I could say I do everything because I love it. Right. Like, I have my team because I love it. Like, I'm a dad because I love it. Like, I'm a husband because I love it. Like, I make videos and I do our social media because I love it. Like, I ride my bike because I love it. Like, we have a bike shop because I love bikes. Like, I wouldn't say that like the things that I do, or I would definitely would not say that anything that I do is driven by like money or, like success. I would say that it's all driven by passion, and I like to do well. So I've made those things successful because I like doing well with the things that I like doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I think we'll end here. Are there any last messages that do you feel like we didn't touch on?
Oh, I feel like I've talked all night, but yeah, I think that's good. I mean, I don't know. I didn't really come into this podcast with any sort of agenda or anything like that. So yeah, I mean, you hit on everything that I like to talk about, bikes. And I will say, yeah, I mean, I really appreciate the support that you guys have given us with the pedal industries. Like, I think you know, it's kind of funny because I've been so busy with like my cancer thing, and then trying to stay on top of my, so like when we got those bags,
Yeah.
when we got, that was when I found out I had my tumor.
Oh my
So
God.
yeah, so like I haven't done a really good job like spreading the love in the team, in the group with those. But like it has spread organically, and it's been fun to see like how the riders like use, like Lauren's bag is literally brown. I had to ask her to take all the stuff out and wash it because she brings it everywhere. Like, it's brown. I don't even know how she's made it that brown, but she she lives in Atlanta, Georgia most of the year.
Yeah.
And so she has to actually, like probably normal people, she has to drive to most of her rides. And
Yeah.
so that bag, it gets packed every day, and then probably plopped on the in the parking lot next to the car, and then unpacked. And she has used that to the maximum for sure. And but what's been cool too is like at the camps that we've done, there's a lot of people that have those bags that aren't Cinch custom ones, the bags. But I think that everybody loves the bag. I think we have an inside joke too within Cinch, like and I guess we can end on this if you want, but like I when I race, like I never really planned on being in the group pedo, right? Like I was like, I'm always going to be in the front. And because of that, I never, so in pro cycling, you have a car 1 and a car 2 rain bag.
Uh-huh.
And so, like your bags, right? We had rain bags. And so I never packed really anything in my car 2 bag because I just assumed, I'll never need that. Like I'm always going to be car 1. Like I'm always going to be, GC or in the front group. I'm never going to need anything from that car 2 bag. And so, I put like somebody at one of the races, like they came up to me and they gave me some coffee. And so I packed the whole bag with coffee, because I didn't have anywhere to put it. And they gave it to me at the race finish. That was just nice people, but I love coffee and I forgot about it. And so during the race, like one of my teammates, their shoe broke, and they needed shoes, and they were the same size as mine. So the director was like, "Hey, I'm gonna give shoes out of the car 2 bag of Tom. He's 42 and a half or something like that." And so they went to get the shoes out, and there was coffee, and there's no shoes, and they were really pissed at me, and they're like, "Tom, like, what the heck? Like, where is your spare shoes? Like, you literally have coffee in that." So every time I see your bag, or any rain bag for that matter, I just always think of that moment where it's just like, yeah, and I always have people, the pros, like, I mean, the guys and girls on the Cinch team, I'm like, is that bag car 1 or car 2? Like, are you in the break today? Or are you in the, and then people like make jokes and fill it up with coffee and give it to me. So anyway, love your bag, love your company.
Thanks.
Second the plug. We need to share with everybody so they can get a bag. And listeners, of course, if you guys are listening, definitely get one of these race day bags. Even if you're not a racer, or even definitely if you're not a racer, they literally fit everything you could ever want in cycling, organize it, and it doesn't take up much room. Like on the plane, you could fit 2 or 3 in the carry-on. Above, you could fit 2 probably at your feet. They work as a backpack. You can carry it. And what I love the most is that somehow you made it so the helmets fit and the shoes fit. And they, like in mine, I have actually 2 helmets and shoes and everything else on the outside. Supplements, I have race food, like gloves, socks, arm warmers, vests, like shorts, everything. Like, it's by far the best cycling bag ever made. So good job for that.
I wasn't expecting that. Thank you. I appreciate it.
It's the truth. I mean, when you reached out to me too, I was like, oh, come on. How good can a bike bag be? Right? Like, I've seen it all, but there's a lot like creativity, like we were talking about. Like, you definitely used your brain in designing that.
Yeah.
Which I say that a lot of bag manufacturers
that's right.
don't.
Yeah. Right. Well, that is a great note to end on. I really appreciate your time and loved getting into the story. And I can't wait to share this with everybody. Just a great message, Tom, and prayers and hope and everything for you on your journey forward.
Yeah. Sure. Thank you so much, Todd. I really appreciate it.
You bet.
All right. Thank you for the support and good chatting.
Yeah. Hey everybody, these podcasts and vlogs are new for Pedal Industries, so if you're enjoying them, please like and subscribe and share with your friends. Thanks so much. Keep challenging yourself.